Hello, mate. Yeah, I can hear you now. Yo, it's loud. Whew. Yeah, yeah, it's loads better. Thank you. It's all right. Yeah, it's been all right, man. It's been all right. It's been good. How about yours? No, never the case. Oh, nice. Good. Well done. Indeed. Yeah. Margaret I just admitted her.
Yes, I am. Yeah. Hi there.
Hey, Margaret.
Great, thank you. You? Weekend was great, especially on Saturday. It was so nice and sunny. I met a friend who I haven't seen for a long time. We just had a lunch outside in the sun. Then we went and had a glass of rosé in the sun. It was perfect.
Nice. Mhm. Okay, cool.
Hi there, my name is Margaret Boy. I have been working in the talent space for close to 2 decades, mostly in recruitment. As a recruiter, I've worked for tech companies of different sizes, startups from Series A to D, but also large tech companies such as Expedia or VMware. During that time, I've recruited very internationally and across all different functions: sales, marketing, finance, engineering, product, etc. So happy to help with anything related to hiring, interviewing, and also training. I've done quite a lot of interviewer training for managers, and I do interview training for job seekers as well.
Hi, my name is Louise Sophia, and I've also, like Margaret, been working in the talent industry for quite some time, over 12 years, and also across a variety of startups, and I've run my own startup as well, so I understand a lot of the challenges faced. I have a particular interest in performance management, and I help businesses now going into the six-figure space build and scale their departments, mostly for the first time, when you really need to start looking at compliance and having something more structured in place. And I'm also training to be an employment solicitor. Thanks so much. Looking forward to helping.
Man, tough audience to follow. You guys are so impressive. This is Jeff Wellstead. I am an American living in London and have been here for 21 years now. Through that time, I have been focused almost exclusively on working with startup to scale up tech businesses, build out their entire end-to-end kind of people strategy, their HR function, all their HR technology, and really have, over the course of time, kind of developed a deep appreciation and strong expertise in how startups basically grow and hopefully don't fail. My focus these days is very much on HR technology, especially with the advent of AI. I'm really excited about that space. And so I do a bunch of things. I work with a lot of AI HR tech startups and kind of help them build out their product market fit. I also basically work with intact HR teams and trying to introduce them to the world of AI and to kind of get them to, go straight into adoption and transformation and the whole 9 yards. So it's a very exciting time to be alive, and I look forward to our various questions today.
Well, huge thanks to all three of you. You've heard them, team. We've got a stellar panel with us today. And if you want to get unstuck, or you simply want some ideas in terms of getting your hiring and getting your startup talent right, all you have to do is drop your question in the chat. We'll then give you the mic. You can then ask our team, start with introducing yourself and then ask our team, and we will then take it from there. In terms of those of you that are tuning in via the live streams, whether that's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, just a reminder that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions there. So you'd have to join us live here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only. And you can do that by going to either clicking on the links that I've put now on all the live streams, or if for any reason that's not working, simply go to our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Look at today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 155. You click join, quick registration. That gets you a link to your email, and through that link, you can join the live audio here on Microsoft Teams. Once you're here, there are no wrong questions. You can ask us anything to do with your talent, whether it's how and where to find the right people, how to convince them to come and work for you, maybe how to do background checks, or how to interview them, or how much to pay them, or how to build your company culture, or how to train people, and all that jazz. Just remember, we are, like I said, we're only going to do this for the next 49 minutes now. And by the way, if you've got questions that are on other topics, please save them for the other events we run Mondays. As you can see, today's talent, But then we also do Tuesdays product and tech, Wednesdays growth, Thursdays fundraising, second Friday of each month it's UK startup law, and third Friday of each month it's UK startup finances, which this month we will actually do this week because I couldn't do last Friday. So just as we wait for some questions, perhaps if our team wants to give us some do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage, don't worry about repeating what you might have said before. And two, if you can use a different one for do and a different for don't, that would be great. So maybe we can start with Jeff, then Louise, then Margaret, please.
Okay, cool. Let's see, this week's do's and don'ts. What I would do is try to get ahead of yourself relative to, I guess, speculating and forecasting how you think your company is going to grow. And even if you are wildly wrong, and at the end of a period, 1 year, 2 years out, at least importantly, you always ever have this top of mind. And I'm talking specifically about things like, a strategic workforce plan and thinking through, which forces you not just to think about people and hiring and HR stuff, of course. It's really to kind of think about the business. Where's it going? What are you going to develop? What do you reckon your market projections are? And how quickly are you going to need people internally to do the things that are going to help you stay ahead of the curve, as opposed to panic, fall behind, fail, and then basically try to catch up. So I tell everybody to embrace that process early, whether or not you have an HR person, a fractional support person, or you're just your own senior leadership team. Think about this stuff early and often. What I would not do, things that you don't want to do, are to basically, let's see, brush employee conflict issues and challenges and hurt feelings under the rug, and basically hope that they go away and just chalk it up to the fact that you're just in a very super busy startup. And frankly, these things happen. Wipe yourself off, stand up, walk it off, on you go. It's really important to manage conflict effectively, to ensure that there are no long-lasting resentments that start to build, as people basically are magic at this particular level, and basically are ultimately going to be the determinant as to whether or not you succeed. So please do yourself a favor and always ever be the first one to show back up after an argument or after a disagreement or whatever the case, and just kind of square things away. Be vulnerable, be open, be humble. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Yes, Louise.
Great. I would say something to do, make sure that when you are registering and setting your company up, if you are intending to hire, that you do need to check your obligations with HMRC, as hiring and becoming an employer means you do also have obligations to auto-enroll people for pensions. So double check that you are making plans for that. Like Jeff said, it's not something that you can just, leave till later on. You need to get the people processes there at the beginning when you're setting up. So do register as an employer and check your pension enrollment obligations. Don't promise employees more than you are actually willing to offer. It can be tempting just to get somebody on side to be like, yes, we're very flexible. Yes, remote is a possibility. Yes, half days are fine. But then you do actually need to make sure that when that person is in your team, that you are willing to stick by those. So make sure that you really consider the role that you're hiring and what you are willing to offer, write it down, and then stick to it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Louise. Last but not least, Margaret, please. Oh, Miss
I just
Boyd.
have to unmute myself now. All good. So, okay. So, well, in terms of do's, I would maybe say use personal networks and referrals, because in trust and speed really are everything. So tap your network, whether it's other founders, advisors, investors, alumni groups, LinkedIn connections. Potentially also create a referral program even at the beginning. So even informal incentives like a small bonus, that can help. And also ask every candidate you like if they know someone else who might fit the role. Like leverage that momentum. So in the startups I've worked for, I've noticed that an intro from a trusted founder or angel investor can often result in much better candidates than just like a cold LinkedIn job post. And another do, I would say, just like streamline the hiring process. Like don't have a 10 steps interview process. So maybe like 2-3 stages process. Initial call, a couple of interviews, a practical assignment, and schedule interviews quickly, and provide feedback fast, ideally within 48 to 70 hours maximum, and use some simple tech tools like Calendly for scheduling, Trello or Airtable for tracking candidates, if you don't have an ATS, and Google Meet or Zoom for interviews. And in terms of don'ts, I would just maybe say one, so like don't compromise on your core values, because a bad cultural hire is honestly 10 times worse than a missing hire, So once you're clear on your core values are, whether it's maybe ownership or integrity or curiosity, interview explicitly for these values. And if a candidate raises doubts on attitude or collaboration during interviews, trust your gut and just slow down, because like as an example, if your culture values transparency and a candidate evades tough questions, that's actually a red flag, even if the technical skills are top notch.
All right. Well, thank you very much to all three of you. Really appreciate that. We'll now go on to some questions that people have sent. And just a reminder, I see some of you have just joined our live streams. We're doing this on Microsoft Teams Live Audio. So if you've got any questions for us, you need to join us here on Microsoft Teams. Quickest way to do that is go to our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Find today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 155. Click join. That's a quick registration, which gets you here onto our call on Microsoft Teams. And when you're here, you can then drop your questions in the chat. We'll give you the mic and you can ask our team of panelists. We're here to help you with startup talent, whether you've got questions on how and where to find the right people, or perhaps a co-founder, or maybe how to convince people to come and work for you. How do you decide how much to pay somebody, or how to get a employer contract done, or perhaps how do you interview someone? How do you do their background checks? What do you do about your company culture? Or maybe how do you build an employment brand and all that jazz? This is the place to be. There are no wrong questions and there's no need to be shy. We are, though, only going to be here now for the next 41 minutes. So we'll go on to our next question, and that's, to our first question, rather. And this is from someone in Derby. She says, we've just signed Series A term sheets for our health tech startup founded in Derby, and we're focused on wearable devices for physiotherapy patients. I'm interested in building a robust talent pipeline to support our expansion. With limited HR resources, how can we create and maintain a talent pool of health technology professionals and engineers, ensuring we have access to the qualified candidates as we grow? Additionally, what strategies can we implement to engage potential hires early so they're inclined to join us when positions open? Quite an interesting one. I guess talent pooling is the main part here, right? And the second part is kind of engage them way before you even bring them on the talent pool, or maybe engage them early, even if they're not ready. Let's start with Margaret, then we go on to Jeff, and then Louise, please. What would you do here, Margaret?
Sure. So, I mean, firstly, congratulations on reaching Series A. That's a huge milestone. So I think it's great that you're looking into building, a lean and proactive talent pipeline. I think that's one of the, smartest investment that you can make. So firstly, you might want to create kind of like a talent pooling, so you can well, there are kind of a few things you can do. So you can either use a free or low cost applicant tracking system like Fresh Team, I think, or Zoho Recruit is another one, or even a shared Google Sheet, to log and tag promising candidates, whether it's engineers or product managers or, any kind of specialists as you come across them. But You can also set up a simple join our talent community form on your careers page or on LinkedIn, and then you can start collecting names now, even before roles that are live. So I would create a join our talent community form on your career site, and also like to engage those future hires early. Start treating them as part of your extended team. So share, product updates, maybe like once a month. Share product updates, funding news, behind the scenes content on LinkedIn and your website. Basically like things that give them a sense of your mission and momentum. And maybe you can even have like a monthly or quarterly newsletter, even if it's super simple, for your talent pool, with updates about what you're building, roles opening soon, stories from the team and stuff like that. I would definitely look at some kind of sector specific communities. I don't know exactly what they could be, but maybe some like health tech Slack groups, any kind of, I don't know, wearable technology forums, I don't know, digital health LinkedIn groups maybe, any kind of like relevant networks. And then when you attend industry events, whether it's virtual or in person, just keep a running list of people you would love to work with someday, even like an informal message, hey, I would love to stay in contact with future roles, message that can go a long way. And then you can add them to either your free ATS, or you can just add them to your Google Sheet. And also, don't underestimate the power of like a founder-led outreach. Top candidates are always flattered to hear directly from a founder. In fact, when I got my job at, well, it was actually it was my first startup, like years and years ago, 2015. When so there was a company called Yieldify, which is a B2B SaaS startup, and the founder reached out to me, and I was kind of flattered, right? So anyway, don't underestimate the power of actually that founder reaching out to candidates. So in your case, even if you don't have a position open, you can send a quick message like, we're not hiring just yet, but I would love to keep you in mind as we grow. Your experience really aligns with what we're building, so something like that can help build long-term rapport and just keep your startup top of mind when you're ready to move.
Thank you very much for that, Jeff.
Yep. Sorry, just coming in off mute. So it's interesting because I kind of read this a little bit differently. I mean, I saw that there was a whole mention of pipeline. And of course, listen, post Series A funding, and to Margaret's point, congrats on that. It's been hard to get any funding these days. So well done. I also kind of read into that, what do we do in terms of attracting our, our first sets of individuals into the organization? So beyond talent pool, I thought I would probably just take it a step further and say, how do you basically start to attract people likely from much more better known, kind of brands and larger companies and things of that nature, and get them to kind of come over and join your relatively unknown startup? So there would just be a couple of quick things. I've done this a load with the tech companies I've worked with, because in every instance we needed people who could literally hit the ground running and come from higher level brand names and really kind of come in and start kicking butt right away and make things happen. So here's my kind of quick advice on that. One is, believe it or not about money, because you likely don't have the money to be as competitively positioned as people in much larger, more established companies. And I wouldn't lead with money. I would lead with purpose. I would lead with your sense of growth in terms of the opportunities that are available, innovation being primary, equity upside, and things of this nature that you typically, and autonomy that you typically wouldn't have in a larger organization. When you start to kind of whisper in people's ears, things like that, who are otherwise sat in a cubicle and fighting the day in and day out political rubbish that oftentimes larger corporations can bring about, a spark starts to go off in their minds, and they're like, oh, wow, I could actually live my better life if I did this. Make sure you articulate a really clear purpose too, right? Especially in healthcare. Talk about your massive transformative purpose. How many millions of people are you hoping to affect, in what particular way, to change what condition, that has forever been plaguing mankind, kind of thing. Get people pumped up and excited about the mission coming in, but mean it sincerely, and always ever lead with that in any communication inside or outside your company. Make sure you're selling the opportunity, right? Communicate good, strong career potential. Equity, again, participation, which would be great. What kind of an impact they can have on the bottom line and top line of the company. And the fact that they can build something meaningful from scratch, I think, is super important. And I think the other thing is that You want to make sure you follow through on this stuff, of course, which is why oftentimes people end up hiring somebody to focus entirely on the human resource side of things. But look, it's a lot more potent and powerful when it comes from leadership, especially the founder. Live your ideals, okay? Make sure that people, excuse me, understand that you are serious about these commitments that you have made to them coming in the door. There's a lot of other things, but building a good, solid employee value proposition that leads with mission, purpose, focus, vision, and gets people pumped up and excited and ensures that it's authentic all the way through, based on the fact that you are exhibiting, the very things that you said and promised you would deliver to everybody, is just super important. And with that, I'll stop rambling.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Louise, please. Not for stopping rambling, by the way.
Great. I agree with what my colleagues have said, and I would also just add that as much as we want them to feel the vision of the company and what we're doing and what we're about, I would also try and find out what the individual's goals are as well. Going back to what was said about succession planning, if you then have identified a couple of candidates, if you know what they want to do, where they want to be, what their skill sets are, you can then also start to plan so that you know, forward thinking, what your business is going to need in 2 months. It'll probably be easier, more efficient, and more cost effective to train those people within to keep that talent moving. So once you've got that pipeline, make sure there is continuous movement and development of those individuals to fill the next roles that you need, which then will also leave gaps for new people to enter the organization, to make sure you've got that continuous flow of talent that's getting stronger and stronger.
Thank you very much, Louise. Well, these are some amazing nuggets here, and I really appreciate all three of you for that. We've only got 32 minutes to go, so probably maybe a couple of questions or so that we may have time. So if you are tuning in via the live streams, whether it's LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, remember that in order to ask our panel, you need to be here with us on Microsoft Teams. By the way, it's live audio, so if you're like me, you don't need to spend an hour in front of the mirror to do your hair. You can just tune in from any device or any platform, whether you're walking your dog in Surrey or cooking lunch in Liverpool or changing baby nappers in Glasgow. You can tune in wherever you are. We're here to help startups with whatever questions you have when it comes to your startup people. And we're going to be doing this for the next 31 minutes. Best way to get onto the call here on Microsoft Teams is to go to our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Through there, you find today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 155. Click join, quick registration. That gets you a link to your email. And through that, you can then come onto our call on Microsoft Teams. When you're here, drop your question in the chat. I'll then give you the mic, introduce yourself, and fire away with your question. There are no wrong questions. However, if your questions are on other topics, please save them for the other events we run. Mondays, as you can see today, it's talent, but then on Tuesdays, we've got product and tech. Wednesdays, growth. Thursdays, fundraising. First Friday of the month, it's UK startup law. And third Friday of the month, it's UK startup finances, although this month, that will be this week because I couldn't do last week. By the way, all these sessions have different experts in their field, so we don't pretend to know it all. Therefore, the people on talent are amazing, brilliant experts like the ones today on talent, and then the ones tomorrow are product people, tech people, engineers, and all that stuff. By the way, if and when you go onto our site, you can also join our WhatsApp community. There's groups of founders, investors, and operators. There's a WhatsApp icon at the top and bottom of our site. If you click on that, you can join us there. And now let's go on to our second question. This is, okay, in London, we're a tech edutainment. Okay, what is edutainment? Okay, education, entertainment. I'm assuming startup in London, preparing to go for Series A, where we create interactive history learning experiences for schools. I've noticed signs of stress and burnt out in our team as we scale up content production. With limited budget for external counseling services, what affordable initiatives can we implement internally to address stress and support team well-being? Moreover, how can we foster resilience and manage expectations within our team, ensuring that mental health is prioritized as part of our company values, even amidst rapid growth? That's an interesting one. I mean, the fact that your people need counseling at this stage, it's maybe something to look at. But tell you what, let's start with Louise, then Jeff, then Margaret. What would you do here?
So this is usually something that a lot of startups will face at some point in their growth phase, where finances are tight, but growth is fast and rapid, and the team tend to take the brunt of that. So it's quite normal within the startup environment. However, what is really nice is to be aware of it, and it's great that this is a question. I love that if we're aware of it and we can tackle it, we can do something to minimize that. What I would say sometimes works really well is often people get a lot of fatigue if there are constant back-to-back calls on things like Zoom. So there could be an initiative let out, and I'm talking about free initiatives here, or what people could do, where maybe people are using things like Notion or Trello or Slack updates, or maybe try and update products and projects through the communication channels, as opposed to constantly being on calls, which can give that extra feeling. Having honest talks with the team, not just like the very formal performance reviews, but also just actually, how are you doing? Let's get on a call, let's have a coffee. If you don't want to get on a call because you're feeling that burnout or that overwhelm with Zoom, just asking them, like, how are you doing? And sometimes just that emotional space to offload or to write out a list about what people are doing helps tackle some of that emotional and mental load that they're going through. Just being able to write it down or go through it, and just remembering that a lot of the time we kind of have this emergency feeling in a corporate environment, and a lot of the time it's not an emergency, and we can actually, for the sake of our sustainability and maintaining strength in our team long term, we might need to just take a pause for the afternoon, that kind of thing. What's really good is if the manager can also flag this as well, because sometimes really hard workers burn themselves out because they just keep going and they don't want to stop and they can't. And sometimes the manager does actually need to also take that initiative to say, okay, enough for today, go and log off and go and do something, and it can wait till tomorrow. Really nice thing, very easy and cheap, celebrate those small wins visibly, talking about people's little wins, small wins, weekly win of things that are going well, or just little things that can help try and boost some of the team morale as well. Over to you guys.
Thank you very much, Louise. I believe the next one was Jeff, wasn't it?
Yeah, indeed. Absolutely. Yeah, that was great, Louise. Thank you for that. Look, this is a very, very common thing, and it's very difficult and very tricky with startup world and scale up world to balance mental health and wellness with the intense pressure, obviously, on the company, basically to deliver to the investors the promises that they've made, both to themselves and to the investment community. It is intense, and it is not a journey for the lighthearted either. So please don't join a startup or a scale up thinking that this is going to be a classic 9 to 5 hour for lunch, two 10-minute breaks, and loads and loads of holiday time, where you don't have to think about the company whilst you're away from work. It's exactly the opposite. Everybody in a startup basically owns the success of that startup, and the weight of that can be sometimes a bit bone crushing, to be perfectly honest. And it's hard, but that's why, again, working for a vision that you know for a fact is going to affect the lives of many, many people in a very positive way does at least kind of give you that inner sense that at least I'm doing something good, for the universe. But the other things I think are really, really, really important, and this has to start from the top, is leadership behavior. When I say leadership, I'm talking about anybody who has anybody reporting into them, okay? But especially at the very top. Look, I mean, founders are notoriously horrific at being the very first people who will put themselves at great risk from a health a mental health and a physical health perspective, just churning the midnight oil all the time. So it's super important that they basically learn from the best of the best in terms of how to find balance in their lives, how to center themselves, how quickly, without alcohol and drugs, preferably, how to calm down and to kind of like find that meditative state that allows you to think freely. That's super important. And any great, founder will tell you that embracing such practices basically makes all the difference and helps them ideate, helps them stay on top of the priorities. And importantly, it helps them lead others, not just by words, but by example. So leadership modeling is critical. Okay. I totally agree, by the way, with Louise's, kind of point about recognition and appreciation. It is so easy to pound on people for not delivering the thing that you ask them to go deliver to. And listen, sometimes that's deserved. But to not then back that up equally with a level of recognition, appreciation, support, whatever it is, when they do win and they do get it right, is criminal, right? You need to really kind of like balance those things out because everybody's looking to you to find out how it is you behave. That ends up being the culture of the organization, even when you're not there. Okay. Also, I'd throw this last one in there. You could talk about this subject for hours. Is realistic goal setting. I can't tell you how many startups I've worked for where I've introduced notions like objectives and key results, OKRs, and said, here's what we need to do. Got to start at the top, got to start at the bottom, got to ladder up and connect everybody with these goals. And the goals are ridiculous, right? We are going to, suddenly go from 50,000 revenue a year to 1.7 million in the space of 6 months, junk like that. It may impress investors and get people excited for about 30 seconds until you realize just how unrealistic that is. And then basically it'll end up being a noose hanging around your neck and waiting for you to fail. And then you're going to spend the rest of your life explaining why it is you can't come anywhere close to meeting the goals that you put out and to publish to everybody. So be realistic about this stuff. Involve everybody in the goal setting process and don't hesitate to have a good, solid, strong debate about whether or not these things are doable. Even if they're a reach, that's fine. They might only be 70% doable, but that's still 70% toward your goal. So put yourself out there, but be smart, be an example, and help lead, not just through negative consequences, but through positive winning and recognition. That's me done.
Thank you very much, Jeff. And just before we go to Margaret, Louise and Jeff, if you can have a look at Anne's question in the chat, please, and start formulating it in your head, that would be great. And two, if you can start writing down some of the tools or any of the tools that we mentioned today, try and write them down so that we can then just put them in the either here or actually ideally on the LinkedIn live stream so that people can see that in the recording as well. I'd really appreciate it. Margaret, the floor is yours.
Yes, great answer from Jeff. I'm just trying to think what else I can add here. So, firstly, I think, start by normalizing open conversations around workload and stress. And I know it's, having worked for some of these early stage startups, I know how much work there is. And, you don't go to these places if you want to have like a really good work-life balance, but at the same time, you don't want people to burn out either. So you could introduce optional 15-minute, 10-15-minute like well-being check-ins, during team stand-ups or retrospectives where team member can share how they're doing without any pressure or judgments. You can also add a regular pulse survey, survey maybe monthly via Google Forms, to anonymously track how people are feeling. Even just asking like, how's your energy level this week? It helps people feel seen. You can also think of some small but impactful team rituals that support that kind of mental reset. So maybe like a no meeting Wednesday, rule, or dedicated deep work hours, maybe like a weekly 30-minute creative breathing space where no output is expected. And also encourage regular breaks, maybe consider designating one afternoon a month as a mental wellness half day. It's free, but it sends a powerful message. And also to manage expectations and avoid burnout, be very explicit about what not to do, so prioritize clearly. Instead of pushing for more output, ask, what can we do well with the resources we have? I think it's also important that you communicate that quality is valued over speed, so you can maybe even create like a like a team resilience charter, outlining like shared agreements, like realistic deadlines, flexible schedules, mutual support. And I think it's also important that you include that mental health into your values, not as a perk, but as a non-negotiable part of your culture. Like include it in onboarding, talk about it in leadership updates, and also it's very important you model it yourself by setting boundaries and taking time off. When founders live the values, the team then follows. So, and actually, just very quickly, like if you wanted to have that kind of, team well-being and resilience guide, that could be just something that, at StartUp, whatever the name is, we believe creativity thrives in sustainable environments, not under burnout. And then you can create some guidelines in how you support well-being as a team, especially during busy period of growth, right? So maybe like in terms of how we work, you think of realistic deadlines, not always on culture, right? Maybe you don't expect people to answer the message on Sunday, taking breaks and that deep work time, right? So maybe you have a set block of hours that will be reserved for focus work, and meetings will be kept to a minimum. And then how you support each other. So maybe that monthly check-in to see how you're doing, and then you use feedback to improve how you work. Maybe a buddy system. So new joiners get a peer buddy, someone to check in and share challenges with and avoid feeling isolated. And also if people feel overwhelmed, let your manager or your teammate know, and like use your calendar for boundaries, right? Block of breaks, thinking time, wrap up buffers, like you're not a machine, so yeah, that kind of stuff.
Well, thank you very much for that, Margaret. And Margaret, same thing to you, if you don't mind, in our live stream on LinkedIn.
Yeah, just looking at it now. Yeah.
If you can type some of the stuff there, and also Jeff has just put some in the chat here. Jeff, I think that is an amazing list. If you don't mind putting that in the LinkedIn chat, please, that would be great. And now, Anne, are you audible? Can you hear us?
I can, yes.
Very good. Please introduce yourself, and thank you very much for joining us, by the way, today. And fire away with the question that you put in the chat.
Okay, thanks, Anton, and hi, Margaret, Louise. Hi, Jeff again. I know Jeff already, and I've had some great mentoring sessions with Jeff previously. So my name is Anne Carrington.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Jeff's often asked me to, come and join these calls, and I'm actually really glad that I did today, because I think the insights that you're sharing are really invaluable. So my background is in HR, predominantly in corporate HR in many various different countries. Currently working with a small consultancy firm that are based in Dubai, and they tend to work with small to medium companies and some government entities. And one of the things we're looking at is the number of startups that are popping up in Dubai because of the investment in AI. So for me, today's call really is a learning opportunity. And one of the critical points in any organization, from startup to corporate, is always people. It always comes down to people. So what I'd like to know from your experience of working with startups, what have you learned from the onboarding process for new talent, whether it's the first 3 months or the first 12 months? And in your experience of what you've seen, what's worked really well in the early stages when you're bringing talent on? And then second question is, what advice would you give to leaders to watch out for in the first 12 months? And that could be anything. It could be their behavior, it could be the individual, it could be the market, their comms. And I think you've touched on some of it already. But what are some of the nuggets that you think, this is what I've seen, and this is what I think works really well? Thank you.
That is amazing. Thank you very much for that, Anne. And we'll start with the ladies, since you've known Jeff, and I'm assuming he would have dropped some of his wisdom as well. Ladies, I guess the best way I could rephrase this is, can you tell us one thing you would do in 0 to 3 months when it comes to onboarding, one thing you would do from 0 to 12 months, and then in terms of the latter question, which is quite crucial in terms of how things work out, is maybe what to look out and to what can leaders in general do. And if we can, let's try and keep it to about a minute or something like that each. So perhaps, I think Margaret is unmuted, so maybe we can start with Margaret, then Louise, and then Jeff, if you'd like to add anything, Jeff.
Okay, great. Let me try to keep it to a minute. So I think what works, and I've attended onboarding in a couple of startups myself, is if it's like a founder-led onboarding. So I think the effective onboardings I've seen, the startups make onboarding a founder level priority early on. So even like a 30-minute welcome call where the founder shares the why we exist, early failures, vision and values, that builds instant emotional connection. It reinforces that just isn't just a job, it's actually a mission. Another thing that's super important is clarity in the first 30 to 60 days. The best early hires ramp up fast when there's clarity around what does success look like in the first 30 to 60 days, what problems they own versus support. Who can they go to for help? So even a simple Notion document with this info, that saves hours of confusion and helps them contribute meaningfully and contribute faster. And also in terms of onboarding, I think high-performing teams onboard best through live exposure, not some static slides, So sure, have some kind of slides, but at the same time, shadowing calls, drawing retros, reviewing real-time feedback with product documents, working on like scope mini projects with early feedback. That kind of stuff builds trust and context much faster and than any kind of onboarding modules. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have them, but that shouldn't be all that you have. Also, you don't stop onboarding after week 1 or 2, do some regular check-ins at key milestones. Week 1, how are you settling in? Day 3, day 30, what's still unclear? And then the days like 60 to 90, are we setting you up to grow? So these check-ins often, if there's any early friction or mismatches, you can fix that before they actually fester. In terms of mistakes, very quickly, don't assume that early hires will figure out because they are smart. That's actually not enough. Ambiguity in those early stages, that just breeds confusion, duplicated work and burnout. So even your most capable hires need context, they need feedback and emotional support. Also, keep onboarding the kind of onboarding playbook as the company evolves, because as your team grows, rituals need upgrading. What used to be verbal now, that needs documenting now. What used to be founder only, maybe that needs to be shared with the team leads right now. And also, what was scrappy when you had 3 people, now maybe it needs a bit more structure when you have 12 people or 15 people. And maybe just a final kind of advice for startup leaders. So be intentional about onboarding, even if it feels too early. It's much harder to retrofit trust and clarity once you've scaled. I would also say invest in documentation from day one. It could be just a few Notion pages. It scales better than founder headspace, right? And also use onboarding as a feedback loop, asking hires, what was confusing? What didn't match what you expected? Because these answers really are gold, for improving retention and culture. And also, final one, create some early alumni success stories. The first people who thrive and grow internally will then set the tone for everyone who follows.
Oh boy. Trouble with this, Margaret, is that Anne and the others won't need to join us again because you've literally given them everything. Thank you very much, Margaret.
I'm sure there's other stuff to add.
Louise, what would you do here?
Great. Margaret's answer was very comprehensive. So I will just add in a reminder that the onboarding is not just the orientation. A lot of companies think that it's about giving them the access code, access to the documents, telling them where to find things, whether that's virtual or literally here's the canteen. That isn't just the onboarding. As Margaret said, it's really, really, really important to give them context and make sure that they understand the culture and it's fitting them into that culture for that long term. So if one thing you can do within the first 12 months, if you want them to get to 12 months and not drop out during that process, is remember it's not just about finding where things are, but it's about feeling that psychological connection to the organization so that they feel embedded in kind of this community vibe for long term, that they're going to stay with you, because turnover is obviously very costly to organizations. It's a waste of everyone's time if they just leave. Make sure that you understand what their role is and that you can explain it simply, because if you can't explain what it is that they need to do, they might not know what it is that they need to do. And I think that was really key what Margaret said, that just because somebody's capable doesn't mean then that we can not give them the same level of onboarding that we would give an entry-level role.
Thank you very much, Louise. That is brilliant. Jeff, would you like to add anything?
There is nothing to add. These two women are the most amazing people on the planet, and they've absolutely crushed it.
That was an MBA in onboarding. Thank you very much, ladies. The only thing I would add, and this is kind of chiming from the amazing stuff that you dropped, but in terms of what to do, either 0 to 3 or 0 to 12, and finding and ensuring that the people that join have a body. I have seen that work miracles. Number 2, make sure that the new joiners don't only shadow people that work with them, but actually, especially in startup land, those early stages, you have an advantage that most other companies don't have. And i.e., you can make decisions and be swift and agile. Therefore, you get these people to actually shadow not just people in, let's call it, their domain or their department, but you get them to shadow each and every department / domain, because that way they get to learn from each other. And it was mentioned here to have regular kind of checkups or calls or whatever, checking in or whatever you want to call them. In terms of what else can be done, if possible, i.e., if you're not fully remote, have ways to take people out, to get them to gel socially with each other. And in terms of what to look out, and one thing that I've seen that can go quite bad is people that form tribalisms. If you can nip that in the bud, that can be really useful, because if it gets out of hand, it can be quite damaging. And last but not least, it's if you see that somebody is actually not a good person and a human being in terms of certain, universal values, believe you me, however good they may come across at that job, time will come where they could be quite damaging to your business. So if you see that that is the case, and this isn't about kind of being subjective and kind of have prejudgments in your head and in your view, and kind of end up firing people you don't like as people. There are a few ways you can go about it, but it fundamentally comes down to you not want to have somebody who's actually a bad person in your business, because however good or bad they are at that business, being bad people won't help you. I hope that helps, Anne.
It does. Thank you very much. And the insights that you shared are absolutely, they are gold dust. And the additional information that you put in the chat group is very helpful. So thank you very much.
Much appreciated, and thank you for joining us. Would love to hear from you again, Anne. We've got 6 minutes to go. Margaret needs to drop. We got time for a quick more. Yeah, one more question. Where is it? Somebody send that through. Oh boy, let me see. Okay. All right, we'll try and do this quickly, I think, if we can. If that's, I think they've sent this a couple of times, so bear with me. Where is, I'm going to copy and paste it, and I'll read it out loud for those of you that are on the live streams and can't be bothered to join us here on Microsoft Teams. So this is one third, so one of 3 co-founders of a seed stage agri-tech startup in Dundee, focused on developing AI-driven pest management solutions. We're facing conflicts between our on-site agricultural scientists and remote AI developers due to communication issues and different work styles. With limited resources to hire a mediator, what practical approaches can we implement to bridge this gap and foster mutual understanding? And B, how can we establish regular touch points to address conflicts early, creating an open culture where team members feel comfortable voicing concerns? Boy, why would you need a mediator? Margaret, since you need to leave first, do you want to go first quickly? Let's try and keep it to about a minute each, please.
Yeah, sure. So, well, okay, well, I don't know. Yeah, as you're right. I'm not sure they actually need a mediator as such, but think of something like how can you create a mutual understanding by basically like some context sharing, right? So, can you maybe do like a show and tell series where kind of both sides explain how they work in plain language, right? So maybe have your AI developers present a live demo of how the model works, why it needs clean data, etc. And then like ask your scientists to walk through, I don't know, whatever they do on a daily, just basically like explain what they kind of do, right? So that helps both sides see the kind of why behind each other's process and reducing any assumptions. And I would also have like a simple pager in Notion or Google Doc, that's like how we define success, or what this model needs to work, because that builds alignment. So yeah, something like that. You need maybe like a glossary of terms, like, I don't know, AI versus agriculture speak. Obviously I know nothing about agriculture speak, but maybe kind of like a glossary of terms and a kind of agreed timelines and assumptions for shared projects. And can you also potentially do some shadowing, like not maybe, yeah, I guess shadowing, like maybe assign an AI team member to partner with a scientist for one sprint and vice versa. So if you have that kind of cross-role exposure, that can deepen trust quickly. And in terms of the touch points, I guess maybe like a lightweight, like a weekly cross-functional check-ins, maximum 30 minutes just for shared projects. Like, what's working, what's blocked, what needs clarity. Like I would make it very informal. And maybe also like our company has a monthly retrospective that includes reflection, not just delivery. So you can think of questions like what assumptions caused friction this month, or where did we misunderstand each other? And I think make sure it's not always led by leadership, but it's like led by different people. And what I was saying earlier in response to some other question, like do some kind of anonymous pulse surveys or suggestion box via Google form, ask every month, what's frustrating to you right now? What would help us collaborate better? And then you share the patterns with the team and you act on them publicly, because even small changes show people that they're being heard. So basically, I don't necessarily think you need professional mediator. You just need some kind of structure and empathy across these different disciplines, and also like the conflict will always happen, right? So you need to get better at surfacing it early, assuming good intent, and then solving it together. I think that's what builds great teams.
Thank you very much, Margaret. Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of I echo your concerns about the fact that they're asking for mediators. I don't know how horribly wrong this has all gone, that we're kind of in that stage. I think it's eminently fixable. Look, when you think about even the journey of an HR person into a lot of these tech companies, I joined these companies not having a lick of a clue as to what it is they do or how they did it. But man, I'll tell you what, the deep dive, the immersion into speaking with people about their livelihoods and what it is they're presenting and what they're working on and why it's important and all these other kinds of things over and over and over and over again, ultimately basically kind of made me a bit of an expert from the outside. I was never ever going to be a coder or any of these other kinds of folks, and that was totally cool, but at least I understood why they were doing it, what they were doing it, what languages they were using, everything else. So I think to Margaret's point, getting people to connect and work alongside each other is super powerful and important, no matter how awkward, bizarre, and strange it might seem that you don't really know anything about what this agri-tech person is doing. Just letting the information and the dialogue and the literacy components and everything else just kind of flow over you. Your brain will start to kind of pull this stuff together urgently. Ask a lot of questions. Don't be afraid. You're not going to upset anybody. You might annoy a couple of people, but that's fine. You need to know. One of the things that I worked at a company that did nano microscopy, which is really interesting. And one of the things they did every Friday afternoon was sort of like a show and tell, where scientists, typically either from the wet lab or from the hardware team, the laser team, whatever it was, would actually stand up and talk about what it is they do, but be forced to kind of like communicate it in layman's terms so everybody could kind of understand. So it was super useful, and it was possibly the most entertaining part of the week. So doing things like that is super powerful. Celebrate the fact that you're all involved in something that's complicated, difficult, and requires a lot of expertise. And the celebration is, but we're all going to learn from each other and kind of figure this out because we're all part of the same vision, part of the same mission. So that would just be my 2 cents on it.
Thanks, Jeff. Last but not least, Louise.
I would just say that a lot of these kind of issues can be prevented during the onboarding stage when the first teams were working together. That's a great opportunity to do a little bit of cross-department work and say, okay, let me spend a day shadowing you spend a day shadowing them, and then initially you're already creating those connections to avoid these kind of situations. If they're talking about mediation, I wonder, like Jeff said, maybe it's all gone very, very wrong. So if you do have situations that may lead down that path, just be very careful to document everything to protect yourself from a legal point of view in case it does end up going disciplinary or to court, etc., etc. I hope that is not the case. Thank you so much, Anton.
A huge thanks to you and your fellow panelists. Really appreciate it. The only thing I would add, I was about to start with a joke to put them in the room and give them a baseball bat and let them sort it out. But jokes aside, I believe, and I've seen this happen a lot, that you can go a long way by sitting down with people, both individually or whoever is part of that challenge or the problem, and then put them together and sit down with them at a table. One of the things that I see working well when it comes to conflict resolution between teams is to ask each of the parties, what is it that they would be willing to let go in terms of fixing that relationship, and keep pushing until they're able to resolve these things. And with that, we are now 2 minutes over the line. So I think a quick one, if you would like to, and if you have time, we'll start with the lady of the house, Louise, and then we'll go on to Jeff. Any parting words for our listeners?
Just to say that startup life is incredibly difficult. But if they are here and they are actively doing the due diligence that is required to face some of these problems, then they're already miles ahead of the competition and doing extremely well. So just some parting words to say, keep at it, it'll be worth it, keep going, and good luck.
Thank you, Louise. Jeff?
Yeah, in the same vein, because I think it's super important. And it's, look, the world is getting nutty right now, nuttier than it ever has been. AI is running at a pace that is seemingly impossible. It's changing everything. Our dear friend, Mr. Trump, and some of the other world leaders are doing some wonderful, wacky, crazy, not wonderful things. And it's just putting everything into a bit of a tailspin. And it can feel like a very disorganized, very chaotic and dangerous world. Look, it always ever was, possibly more so 100, 200 years ago, to be perfectly honest. So look, keep your chin up as a founder and as a startup to scale up member. Make sure you look after yourself, after your own head, after your own soul. Take care of what matters: your family, your friends, your life, your energy, your breath, all of that stuff. Stay focused on the things that really matter in life. Startups will be there. They will come, they will go, they'll be difficult. Make sure that the startup that you're in, you're passionate about, you feel good about, and it really is inspiring to you as opposed to tiring. So those would be my parting words of wisdom, I guess, for today. Thanks, Anton.
Huge thanks to all of you. Really appreciate that. Thank you to everyone that tuned in, especially those of you that were here on Microsoft Teams, and most especially to Anne for asking a question. Just a reminder, we run 6 regular events: Monday's Talent, Tuesday's Product and Tech, Wednesday's Growth, Thursday's Fundraising, second Friday of each month it's UK Startup Law, and third Friday of each month it's UK Startup Finances. This month, our Finances Q&A will be this Friday, which is the 4th Friday, because we couldn't run that last week. So just a reminder, and if you do want to join any of our future sessions, you can do so by RSVPing through our site, startuptoscaleup.club. When you're there, just pick any of your preferred sessions, click join, and it's a quick registration that gets you a link to your email. On the other hand, you may also want to join our WhatsApp community. There's some amazing groups of founders, investors, and operators, and you can easily join that via our site. When you go to startuptoscaleup.club, at the top and bottom of it, there are some WhatsApp icons that you can click. Now, as far as my parting words are concerned, just remember the startup journey can be both exciting but also quite challenging. So try to have some fun and be kind to yourself and everyone else for that matter too. Otherwise, have a great afternoon and hopefully see you tomorrow for an amazing session of startup product and tech Q&A. Thank you and God bless. Bye-bye for now.